Okay, so far what we have is we have a player and we have some bouncing enemies who move around the screen. And when the player overlaps, in other words, catches an enemy, then they destroy the enemy. So on the start, we set our background color, we created a player, we created the enemies, we gave them an initial position, and I've used random numbers here. I've said 10 to 120. You need to kind of play with those numbers and see what happens. Set the velocity. I haven't picked those as random, but I could. And remember, I'm making it bounce on the wall so that it doesn't disappear off the screen. And I've made two enemies. And in a forever loop, if my player overlaps with an enemy, then it destroys the enemy with a certain effect. Well, you're going to want to keep track of a score. So the way you do that is if you go down to info, you'll notice there's something called set score. So at the beginning of the game, I'm going to set the score to 0. And you'll notice in the top right-hand corner of your console screen, there's a little 0 now. That keeps track of your score. Under info, we can also set a countdown to a certain number of seconds. So let's say we're going to give you 20 seconds to hunt as many enemies as possible. And you'll notice there at the top of your screen, there's now a little countdowner, which records the time as the game counts down. And when it reaches 0, it gives a little message that the game is over. So it's a nice little feature built into the software here. Game over, your score is 0, and it also gives the high score, so you can compete against yourself. So you can change the countdown. Now, obviously, we're going to need to change the score whenever you destroy an enemy. So under info, you'll notice I've got change score by 1. So if I destroy pizza over here, it changes the score by 1. And I can duplicate that and have, if it destroys, let me just minimize that. If it destroys cake, then it changes the score by 1. We can just test this on the screen. So there, destroyed a cake, and whoa, it's quite tricky to catch. So I scored 2 there. Well, I'm well within the time, and just scoring, 0, 1, or 2 is not making for a very interesting game. It doesn't make for a very interesting game. So what I want to happen is every time I've destroyed a pizza, I want a new pizza to spring up. And at the moment, I've got this whole routine that creates the pizza, and I could just duplicate that and copy it across. So destroy pizza, change the score, and then make a new pizza at a random position, etc. But a better way to do that is to use a function. And I've created one function here already, and it's to make a player. And it says set cake eater to sprite kind of player, move cake eater with buttons, and so that it stays on the screen. And then you'll notice in my start menu, I made the background and then I called up this function. In other words, this function is let me put a stop to that. This little function has a semi-routine, which is to make a player. I could make a similar function to create pizza and to create cake. So I go down to, you'll notice you've only got these, but if you click on advanced at the bottom, you've got some others. So I could say functions, and I could make a function, and I could say make pizza. Click done, and then I've got to make my function for creating pizza. And I've already done that over here. So all I need to do really, just unhook those two, is to go and do my whole pizza routine. And I could make another function for make cake. And this is, things are moving around the screen. Now I'm moving around the screen. Let's go scroll down. There's our cake. This is rather annoying. Anyway, so I pop that on the screen. So now I've got a function for making cake, a function for making pizza, and on the start, I called make player, and if I click on functions again, I've now got a call pizza, and if I click on functions, and I've got to make cake. So if we start the game again, you can see it creates the pizza and the cake, and it just runs the game. But when they're destroyed, they don't spring up again. So what I need to go and do is fetch the other code. So I've just got to find it here. Let's move it to the side. Move it up a little. This is very annoying that it disappears like this. Okay, so there's my other function, and now my forever loop. So what I want to happen is, if it destroys the pizza, it changes the score by 1, and then it's going to make more pizza. So I go and get my make pizza, and then I can duplicate that, and no, I've actually can't do that. I've got to use the function here for making cake, because you can't change what's there. So now let's see if it works. Every time I destroy a pizza or cake, you'll notice it's, I'm rubbish at playing, but you'll notice it generates a new one. And as the countdown clock, let's see if I can get the highest score. Come on, one more at least. There's the countdown. I scored 17, and it's a new high score. Well, this essentially is quite a pleasant little game. Hunting cake, hunting pizza, something we can all relate to.